the reason that this country is as it is, and the beautiful tapestry of what it is, this mosaic that are these United States of America, is because of the contributions of so many people. It hasn't just, we've been told a lopsided, one-sided story
Yeah.
that has hurt everybody.
Right.
It's hurt us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we want to do is because it's not until you meet somebody else that's not like you that you begin to see our shared humanity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you tell a story that these people are like this and they're like this and they've not done anything and all they're doing it, then you have a very, very lopsided and unfair um, view of the world.
You've been named a United States Global Music Ambassador, and that's a partnership between the State Department and YouTube.
Hmm.
And the idea is to spread the gospel of American music as an instrument of peace and democracy around the world.
Beautiful.
So, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I would love to hear what your vision or your hope or your dream is about, your presence as part of this cohort and what American music can accomplish in the
Mm.
big, messed up world.
This particular appointment now is exactly what you said so beautifully, um, with the mission of, through music, what we all know as musicians, the impact that music can have. I mean, I think, I don't know what called you to this profession, but for me, it was because, I heard something, it moved me. I know the impact that it had on me personally. And it is a universal language, right? So you
Mm.
can go someplace where you don't speak the language and where maybe you don't have very much in common with the people across the proscenium arch, but this is a binder and a great unifier. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., and so am often at the Kennedy Center honors for, and Washington's a very political town. Um, and I remember one year I was there and I was sitting next to somebody red, and then on the other side of me was somebody blue. Very contentious individuals, right, with a history and storied past. But then
Music.
James Kid Taylor comes out, right, and starts
Yes.
singing,
Yes.
and all of that falls away,
Yeah.
and it puts us in touch with our humanity. And years ago, I told this story the other day. Years ago, when I was doing my apprenticeship with Houston Grand Opera, they sent me out on these educational outreach, and that's really sort of how I cut my teeth as a performer. Because it's one thing to be performing at the Metropolitan Opera and all these wonderful places like La Scala. It's another thing entirely to perform for seventh graders. And
They
you
are
want
the
to talk
toughest crowd. Yeah.
brutal,
Yeah.
brutal, right? And so to have to get that message across, because they let you know quick, fast, and in a hurry, if they believe you, if you're honest,
Mhm.
you're telling the truth up there, if you have a personal message, if you have something to say, they will sniff that out right
Mhm.
away. And so those audiences were really, really, really difficult to learn how to sort of capture an audience and to hold the stillness and hold the space and to create something, meaningful. And so I was fortunate to have had many, many experiences like that. And years ago, they sent me out on an assignment to a prison.
Mm.
And I didn't want to go, and I didn't know how that was going to be received. And I thought, it's very different when you're giving a concert. People purchase a ticket and they want to be there,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's very different in front of an audience like this. And I just didn't know, what going in singing operatic arias could possibly do, right? it was one of it was one of the greatest gifts of my life.
Mhm.
Because first of all, I was resistant. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think that, that it would be meaningful to them at all. I thought out of all the things they want to hear, the last thing they want to hear is arias, right? The last thing they want to hear is classical music.
Mm.
Maybe they want to hear something, more contemporary or more popular. Boy, was I ever surprised. Was I ever
Yeah.
surprised with that audience? And to see those faces come in, some of those faces of stone, of just marble, just come in. And I just was looking at everybody thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder what he did. And I wonder what he did. And to see those frozen faces begin to soften
Mhm.
and light come into their faces,
Mhm.
and people begin to smile and laugh and really enjoy it. That was maybe for me one of the greatest illustrations of what music can do.
Yeah.
And I know that whether you're red or blue or whatever you might be, or whatever your nationality or whatever your race or whatever your social economic status, whatever those dividers are, that is a tool that can bring us together and remind us of our humanity and remind us that we're more alike than unalike. And that I think is
Yes.
incredibly powerful,
Yes.
because I think when we look at division in the world, it's because somebody has been made to feel less than, somebody
Mhm.
has been dismissed, somebody has been made to feel that their point of view or their existence does not matter, right?
Mhm.
And that's at the root of all conflict. And so I think that it's a way to be it's a way to begin a
Yeah.
kind of a repair.
Right. It's funny. I have so many thoughts listening to you. One thing is, I think it's so funny that we as artists, we all have these stories that we bring out as proof, like as proof positive. This really happens, but it's for ourselves as well. And I
Right.
wonder, why is it so hard for us to convince ourselves, even though we know at this very core level, we know how much the music matters. And yet it's those stories like, I remember this time and I remember this face and I remember this thing this person said. And I think we take it upon ourselves as part of our job to be like ambassadors all the time for our music making, because we experience these things, but they come and then they're gone and we want to show the impact. Um, I have come to accept that maybe I don't even know what it means to me personally to be an American right now, except for my music. That
Mm,
I know, that I understand. I heard
wow.
myself in a concert the other day saying the way that I trace my roots is through my music. And I'm thinking about all those State Department tours in the mid 20th century, Duke Ellington and Dave Brubeck and Louis Armstrong, those State Department tours that were going on in the middle of the Cold War
Right.
and the Civil Rights Movement. And I think that that really had a huge impact on the global stage
Hmm.
of defining what it meant to be American. But I'm guessing that for them too, their roots were in the music, and that's what they were translating out into, other cultures, other languages,
That's a
other
very insightful
continents.
perspective. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's very thought provoking. As soon as you said that, I started asking myself the question, right?
Well, especially in DC, like the definition of, you know, being American, it changes with every administration, right? It's just
Mm.
like a thing that it's hard to hold on to, I think. History.
It's very interesting. When I was 15 years old, I did an exchange program in Munich, Germany. I had a German teacher, Gisela Severino. It's an Italian name, but anyway, she was German. Um, who started a program with the gymnasium in Munich. And so she said, Denise, you've got a really good ear, and I would love to take you. This was sort of experimental. It wasn't part of a big exchange program. This was something that she had organized with her friends in Munich. And I stayed with a German family, the Schloters. And I remember coming downstairs one morning, and I could hear my German host mother on the telephone. And she said, we have an American staying with us. And I remember the pride that was in her voice when she
Mm.
said, we have an American staying with it. And I remember the pride that I felt as I walked into the room and walked into sort of the cloak of that definition, thinking, I'm an American, but I had not felt like an American in America. In America, I was considered, somebody who was born on the and existed on the other side of the tracks. And this black girl over there, um, who didn't really have an identity or a voice or, mattered that much. And I remember for the first time feeling important
Mm,
through the eyes of this German woman
mm,
and the way that she explained their, guest to one of her friends. And that was probably one of the times that I felt uniquely American. I
mm,
remember thinking, oh, that's what I am.
mm.
Oh, I'm that. I'm an American. That's how I'm seen
Right.
around the world. But that was a real sort of defining moment for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing a few months ago this concert in LA that was a revival of this huge work by Margaret Bonds,
Ah,
her Credo, which hadn't been done in Los Angeles since 1972 at its official premiere, which was a few weeks after she died. So it was a big thing. It was an emotional thing. And I was giving an interview about this, and I heard myself say the words I said, there's a certain kind of courage in doing things that no one is asking you to do and making things that no one is asking you to make.
mm,
And then when I heard the playback of that interview, I thought, oh, well, yes, I'm talking about Margaret Bonds in the 60s, but I'm also kind of talking about myself, right? This going beyond, right? The going beyond just being, an international opera star. The always thinking, I think about this the connection between the past and the present and the future, and where am I in this
mm,
continuum of
mm, mm,
door opening,
mm.
right? So what can I do to open it further? I mean, I see you doing this every day. You're always doing more. You're always doing more for the, with the mentorship and the building of projects for the next generation and the expansion of everything.
Well, I thank you for saying that. I'm incredibly fortunate in that I'm working with young people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I see some of the shifting and the changing and the expansion that's happening within the industry. And I've got, I watch their lives, and what I want for them is what, most teachers want to see the success and we are completely invested in their success
Mm-hmm.
and to see what happens for them, what we've been able to do, with our lives. I mean, my greatest joy has been watching my students up there, and yesterday, I know we'll get into it, but I have a foundation, and yesterday we started a residency with the new incoming cohort of college students in our Shared Voices program. And I had interviews with all of them to just find out who they were, what it is that they wanted, what their big dreams were, and some of them come in with such incredible excitement and energy and passion, and you want to see that happen. You want to see them be able to succeed, and it is also the American dream, I think, which
Yeah.
I still believe in.
Yeah.
And so I'm fortunate in the position that I have in working with the young people because I see what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be able to influence that, to be able to support that, to be able to promote and uplift that in whichever ways I'm able to,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's also that proof positive that there is a future, right? It's like it's very abstract to talk about the future unless it's right in front of you as parents, as
Right.
teachers, right? You
Yeah.
see it, you want to be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, talk about the foundation. Tell me how it started and why and where it's
So
going.
so there are many things that came together that created this foundation. It was not my intent at all.
Mm.
There was a confluence of a convergence of three things in particular that birthed this idea. First of all, it was COVID. and we were all under the quarantine, and we were all watching other pandemics unfold, right? It started with the murder of George Floyd, and then we started just one after the other. We started seeing these incredible happenings that we'd been saying the whole time, but people had the cameras on, and then
Yeah.
the world could see it for themselves, what was happening. And I was watching the young people out there in their masks and the people protesting, and I was feeling very embarrassed that I was sitting in my house watching the young people out there saying, this will not stand. And this cannot be the world this is not the world that we want to live in, and this is not the world that we want to create. And I felt so embarrassed sitting at home watching that on television. And I thought, if I don't do something, then, I'm part of the problem. The Denyce Graves Foundation is about lifting up into rightful prominence those great individuals who have contributed to our cultural fabric, but those people who have been left out of the telling of the American story.
Yeah.
And there are lots of different ways that we do that, but we create works of art that tell their stories. And one of the programs in the foundation is a Shared Voices program, which is an HBCU conservatory exchange with the goal of getting incorporated into the American canon, the work that you've been doing with the championing of the work by Margaret Bonds and by Florence Price and all of those great heroines that you've been championing in your own work. It's about telling the stories of those great artists that existed at the same time as Mozart with Chevalier
Right.
Saint-Georges, right?
Yes.
Or the same time, we learned about Schubert and Schumann and Chopin, all those wonderful, fantastic geniuses. But at the same time, there were women composers.
Yeah.
At the same time, there were African American composers. At the same time, there were LGBTQ composers. And so our work is about shining the light, as you spoke on, of these wonderful artists who have influenced our cultural fabric, who have created such amazing, amazing art forms in different genres that we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Right?
And when I say it's a transformational time, I think I'm saying that from within this world, this art form, this business, and this country, and all the stories that we are learning and telling. But now I'm so emotional hearing you tell this story. And now I'm thinking that this question of global ambassadorship and global diplomacy, this is what that needs to be. This is the presence and the story of American art and culture and history that we have just started to understand and to share with the world completely transforms the way that the world sees America.
And I think because the foundation sits at the intersections of social justice, American history, and the classical arts, right? The classical arts. I talked originally about watching the protests, right? And watching all of that unfold. And feeling like I needed to do my part in that. My ultimate personal mission with the work of the foundation is to create global compassion, right? And how is it that somebody gets on the back of his pickup truck with his son and they decided to gun down some guy because he's jogging, and they decide that they get to determine who lives and who dies, and that person shouldn't be jogging? Why is that exists? Because somewhere they have gotten the message that this life is not as important as this life, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay to do. And I think that if we show, and that by showing the many incredible contributions, the reason that this country is as it is, and the beautiful tapestry of what it is, this mosaic that are these United States of America, is because of the contributions of so many people. It hasn't just, we've been told a lopsided, one-sided story
Yeah.
that has hurt everybody.
Right.
It's hurt us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we want to do is to, because it's not until you meet somebody else that's not like you, right? Until you're exposed to somebody else that's not like you, right? That you begin to see our shared humanity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you show, if you tell a story that these people are like this and they're like this and they've not done anything and all they're doing, then you have a very, very lopsided and unfair um, view of the world.
And the reason it's so hard for us to live in the world is because we have a view of the world all day, every day, and we see firsthand in immediate, playback in real time that injustice and this kind of hatred, it's not an American problem. This exists everywhere, and we see the outcome of it,
Absolutely.
and it's horrifying. And we sat together at that renaming of Marian Anderson Hall and listened to Audra McDonald sing Children
Children will
Will
listen.
Listen. And that's what I was thinking about that night is, yes, the untruths that are taught to us when we're small and the opening of our hearts and eyes and minds that,
Right.
we have to do for ourselves and for everyone else.
Absolutely. We have a
And the
responsibility. We
music
owe that.
does it.
Brava.
Hmm.
That's our great, well, I was about to say weapon, but I don't like to use that word to associate that word with that.
Power.
Power. That's exactly right.
Mm.
And that's what it has the power to do. Music can transform us in our minds and our hearts. And that's the work that we're doing. That's the work that we're doing at the foundation, which aligns with this amazing appointment and assignment that I've been given as Global Music Ambassador, to take that message all over the world. But to take it in a way through sharing and through listening, right? There's, I think that the way that we do it is also important. It's not what you say, it's also how you say it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in a way that we can all share and delight and participate in, right? Nobody had to say anything when I was sitting at the Kennedy Center Honors next to the red person and the blue person. The music did it.
Yeah.
The music did it,
Yes,
right? Then all of a sudden we were holding hands,
Right.
everybody was singing, we were lighting the lighter, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And that created a harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody had to say anything.
Right.
The music spoke.
Yeah.
And that's the work.
And you were the purple person in the middle.
Yeah, right. Right.